let's look at the concept of brand activations. It's almost like consumers are becoming more and more, engaging, more and more demanding. So brand activations almost seems to be the key, isn't it, Kevin? So could you take us through a quick summary of what Comutanet is up to when it comes to activations?
Sure. We've spent a significant amount of time over the past few years building an activations team that caters to the very whims that you're talking about. So we have specialists in our business that look after, for example, conceptualizing. We have specialists that look after campaign management, event management, and then obviously we also still have the opportunity of outsourcing a lot of elements that we would need to bring into the mix. So basically what we would do is we would take a strategy or a brief from a client, take it internal with the specialist in-house, and build an activation idea around that, put some kind of campaign together, bearing in mind that again we have the opportunity to mix that with various media types that we have in our stable and really offer a solution to the client.
So it's more integrative, campaign or strategy going forward. So
yeah, I think the key really here is about quality interaction. So it's a one-on-one interaction,
right?
As opposed to just a blanket approach. Again, going to what we were talking about earlier about this notion of clutter. It's making sure that you have a direct communication opportunity with a potential consumer, and I think very importantly is that is a bi-directional communication. So you have the opportunity to get feedback, to gather information as much as you have the opportunity to pass on information.
Jacques, from your side?
I think what Kevin's saying is absolutely right, and why we've seen brand activation grow the way it has is that it's one of the only communication elements where there is two-way communication taking place. So that's why it's so valuable and becoming so important. I think maybe just to add to that, what we are seeing in the market as well is if we almost take the top-end consumers, we're finding two distinct type of behavioral responses to activation in the marketplace. So the top-end consumers, me and you, were walking through, don't want to mention brands, but let's say a food store or a retail store, and we see a dem lady or an activation person in the aisle. What do? We will skip that aisle because we don't want to be bothered, don't want to engage, etc., etc. Where with the lower and middle LSM markets, we find exactly the opposite. Those consumers treasure the interaction. The more the merrier, the more tangible taste, feel, questions, interactions they can experience, the better. So it's quite two distinct ways of approaching the activation space. So in terms of top-end consumers, what we've now developed and what we're spending a lot of resource and time in is you have to significantly add value to the shopping experience or the brand engagement experience. Where with the middle to lower LSM, not that important, but the fact that it's very tangible consumer you're dealing with becomes more important in that space. And then obviously the integration, critical.
Integration,
because this is, and we see it as that's where we close the loop. That's where we can show the advertiser real ROI in terms of numbers, sales, units moved, feedback received, leads generated for insurance companies, etc., etc.
Kevin?
No, I just wanted to add it. I mean, Jacques talks about the interaction, and I've witnessed personally where, where we have these large crowds of people around a specific activation, where somebody in the crowd actually got up on the stage and took the microphone away from the promoter because they felt they could be doing a better job than the promoter promoting the brand. And that's the involvement and the I don't know what you call it, a gees, that you can build around these activations.
It's very emotionally involved in the brand experience, which is
good for the brand owner to actually experience that, isn't it?
But the quality is, and who you do your activations with is absolutely key.
That's
so
key.
That quality delivery, because that person, it's normally a person, represents your brand.
Yeah.
So it has to be well trained. You have to make sure that the right things are said.
Right.
The brand imagery comes across, etc., etc.
Let's look at outdoor advertising. I think gone are the days where traditionally you only had sort of billboards and street pole ads, and it's almost like one guy one day put a hoarding up, and now the town is filled with hoardings and building wraps and whatever the case may be. Where did that trend start, Kevin?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think at last count there are 200 plenty media owners out there in the out-of-home space. So I think perhaps what has happened is that a lot of people have seen it as an opportunity to make a bit of money. I would have to probably also say that many of those 200 aren't going to last. So one of the issues that we have is obviously making sure that we retain our quality offering, and that it doesn't just become a price-sensitive war. That strategy is still inherent in that decision, and that people are looking for quality, and that's what we sell. We don't sell, you know, a throwaway brand marketing. We look at differentiating ourselves on the quality of our output.
But don't you think the market will at some point become saturated, Jacques?
Yeah, I think we're close. Especially over World Cup, you know, we saw players that we've never heard of before. All of a sudden, they've got media businesses.
Yeah.
So what Kevin is saying is absolutely true. And you know, from an industry perspective, it's a worrying trend for us. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, it will clean up. It is about sustainability. You know, the bigger, better quality operators normally survive. But you know, we as an industry also engaging advertisers and advertising agencies and saying to them not to, you know, use people that are got illegal sites up, that are, you know, just do whatever they want, wherever they want to do them, you know, and we need their assistance because we can't police the industry.
Sure.
They can.
Sure.
So
not your job to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's
although it's to your own benefit, you know, to regulate.
But there's government involved, you know, there's municipal council. So there's a lot of stakeholders involved in the industry. But yeah, it's not always easy, and it's got pros and cons, I suppose.
But let's take a look at trends going forward. What I found very fascinating was the Nike building wrap during the World Cup in Newtown.
Yes.
Where it was this interactive, you know, the Facebook, the comments, the visuals changing. And do you see that as a trend going forward?
What we're seeing as a big trend, and this is common across the globe, especially with lots of clutter, you know, on the street, is advertisers are most certainly looking for bigger impact versus the clutter.
Right.
So they want to make a statement, they want iconic sites, they want to stand out.
And also creative.
So absolutely, and that's part of the iconic value of a site.
Yeah.
Ponty that changed now.
Yeah.
You know, it's talkativity. It becomes landmark. So there's a big demand for those type of sites.
Yeah.
Not just in South Africa, globally.
But don't you think, just on that point, Jacques, are we going to become, or do you think there's an opportunity for city centre, Kevin, to become a Times Square? We've got all these digital boards and whatever the case may be. Is that the future?
Look, I think I would never say no. You can't say that it wouldn't happen. But I think what needs to happen, and again, you know, Jacques spoke about it, we need to, as an industry, be responsible in how we do that. And you know, Times Square, I don't believe to be an ugly place. It's, you know, if you look at those, you know, Piccadilly Circus, there's a good vibe there.
Piccadilly Circus, same thing.
And I think as well, you know, to the point as well of, you know, you're talking about this interactive element. You know, we live in a connected world. Everyone's connected.
Yeah.
A, and B, every consumer wants their say now.
Right.
So this notion of consumer-generated content, if you like, or consumer-generated feedback is definitely upon us. And you know, and so certainly the electronic kind of age, if you like, and the electronic billboard options are there, and they are definitely going to, you know, start being more prevalent.
Do you think it's highly regulated in a city in terms of?
Yes and no. There is a lot of bylaws.
Yeah.
The fact that a lot of media owners just ignore them is also prevalent in the industry. So yes, it is regulated if you choose to follow the bylaws. So, you know, but I think more on the positive note, I think the future of out-of-home media is most certainly adding functional benefits to people. So, I mean, in Europe you see a lot of street furniture, you see a lot of really nice bus shelters. They are there to serve the community, but they've got an advertising purpose. That's why they... So it's almost a synergistic type of... give an example, as Kevin said. Imagine driving to work, having 4 or 5 electronic billboards that give you some news information, the weather report, traffic information. It adds value
to the consumer.
It adds value to your life. Now that is the future.
That's the future.
In my mind, is to marry the two.
Thank you, Jacques, for that. And Kevin, thanks for joining us on Media and Money.